special good morning to our listeners, those of you listening via Classic Radio. Good Monday morning. It's the 18th day of September 2023. Good morning, and once again, say good morning to our viewers via GBN TV, whether you're viewing Channel 7, Channel 11, or Channels 20. Good morning, welcome. What about our social media audience? Those of you via our Facebook page, YouTube channels, good morning Wednesday. It's to the point here on, of course, the various entities that I have mentioned. Good morning once again. Let me say good morning to my guest with me as usual, or co-host, I should say. Let me say good morning to Mr. McIntyre. Mr. McIntyre, good morning. How are you doing, sir?
Yes, good morning to you, GT. I am fine, absolutely fine.
All right. How was the weekend and everything?
So my weekend was, as usual, very good. There's always something different on my weekends. I always choose to do some relaxation in between.
All right.
You know, you have to mix your whole life process, your activities, and you can't be just going and not taking a break. So I would take a little time for nature, socializing, professional aspects, and the rest has to be part of the mix.
It was a kind of bit of an unusual weekend for me. I went to the beach, which I haven't done in a whole year. So I was saying, you live in Grenada, right? You don't live in Grenada. I haven't been to the beach in about a year.
Right.
And for some reason, yesterday, I just took the family to the beach, and it was really good. It was really good. You know, it felt like a visitor for some reason.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I live just walking distance from one of the world's famous beaches. That's the Grandlands Beach.
Yeah.
And I had not been to the beach from, I think, was it June or early July was the last time I went.
I haven't been for more than a year. More than a year. You understand? I just time just didn't permit. But one of these weekends I plan on staying home. Okay, you know I'm always out working. And for some reason this weekend I decided I was going to stay home this weekend.
Okay.
And yesterday I just say, let's hit the beach. And it was for a good reason too. The heat was out.
Right.
The heat. And the house was just unbearable for me, bet. You understand? So I just decided, hey, let's get out of the house.
So why the beach and not the river?
Well,
you ever tried the river?
I have never tried the river.
You should.
I haven't tried the river. I haven't tried it in a long time also.
You should.
Should try the river. But the beach, it was good.
I said you should try you should try the river.
I will try the river. I've always been told to go to the river.
Yeah.
But I have just never really. And I live close to one, but it's not what you can be now. But
the river bath is different to that of a shower or in the sea, because when you lie in the river and it gives you a different sense of tranquility, the river, than that of the beach, the sea. And when you get into that water and you relax, it brings your body so tranquil, and it makes the system so cool that it lasts for a long period of time. You would think, well, why am I not sweating? But the being in the river, even as hot as it is, it gives you that sense of really being cool and tranquil.
I will give it a try. I will certainly give it a try. I will take it and give it a try.
Them a bit more too.
I will certainly give it a try.
Yeah.
Hey, lots been happening for the past week, and so we had a lot. We had this Hurricane Lee. Is it Lee, right?
Yeah.
It's been up and down in terms of the strength of it.
Yeah.
What have you heard about it so far?
Yeah. Well, the thing about it, we don't tend to follow the cyclones once they're not of us.
Within our jurisdiction, we could say.
They're out of us, and so what the forecasters would do, they would just say, well, it provides no direct threat to Grenada. But what we see there is one of them, I think it was the same lead that spent a lot of time over water.
Yeah.
And so that ripped up some currents and some tides along the Bahamas coast, the Bermuda and these areas. They did get some sea surges, etc.
Yes.
But it was nothing that was out of the that was a disaster in the sense that you had to call for external help. There was the little help that came in from here and there. But that's the threat that exists with these systems, not of us. In addition to that, what Lee and others have done, you realize outside of the regular heat that we get, but tropical cyclones, when they form in a particular area, particularly when they're not of us, they seem to draw most of the moisture from the atmosphere or the area around them. So they pull it up, so that adds to the heat that you would get. And the tail end of that, though, and I think it's something I want to speak about. When you have a season like the one we are experiencing, the tail end sometime late September, October, when the rain comes, it comes in torrents.
Yes.
It really downpours. So it's one of the things we have to be mindful of, that despite the kind of a heat we're having now, that we likely, despite there is what is called and beyond regular dry season, but when the rain do fall sometime, especially in October, the trend has been it comes down really, really heavy. Now what it does, it takes people off guard, because the soil have been already exposed. There are cracks and other things there. The water gets in very easy, because some roots might expose the surface as well. So that could lead to quick landslides. And in other cases, it also lead to flash floods in areas. So people have to be mindful of that. In addition to that, the heat would create cracks in people's homes. And you have to start looking out for that. Where the soil type is of such, where you have this, you see the loam what type soil and so on, the stronger soil.
Which moves easily.
They would pull apart some of them inches they do, or they're about. And they have impact on the foundation. Okay. And sometimes it compromises the integrity of some structures. Some of the concrete structures, they can crack. When you have cracks, water or moisture can seep in, and then you can have leaks that can lead to other things. So people need to now look at inspecting their own facilities. In addition to that, when you have excessive heat, or you have the kind of a heat waves that we've been having, it is also like a favorable condition for seismic activities. Earthquakes and volcanoes, and volcanoes when they do act up, they generate earthquakes. When they generate earthquakes, you have folding, you have faulting, you have the cracking and so forth, and that in itself can have impact on structures. So people may not notice, even if we're not having tremors or earthquakes that are very strong in our area, but a 4 point or 3 point something and so forth may not have the kind of an impact like a 5-6 beyond, but some structures may be a bit susceptible or vulnerable, and so some cracks and so can happen. A question
I would like to ask about that too, in terms of pre-preparation for that, in terms of, okay, we are getting all this heat now, and you did say, how can individuals prepare themselves, for the upcoming, if as you said, we may get a lot of rain and stuff. How can someone prepare themselves for that? The landslides, we're expecting that. What are things individuals should do?
Yes. One of the things this program could pride itself on, we don't just identify the issues, but we look at the causes, solutions,
and some solutions that
people can. And you ask the right question. So now, what people need to do, despite you don't have a direct watch or warning for a hurricane, but people can start like having those containers that they can store water in and so forth. They can look at, it's an opportunity as well to clean your storage facilities. People who have storage tanks and so on, over a period of time, they become silted, so they need to clean them. If you have catchment areas, like people who have cisterns and so on, when you have a decrease in the amount of rainfall, it's an opportunity for you to clean and sanitize those facilities in preparation for when that starts. So you're going to prepare your storage facilities and so forth. And when you have lots of water, you may have stagnation in some areas. That in itself can could lead to vector-borne diseases and other things. So you want to have purification tablets if you can, or ensure that if water goes over a period of time or happens to be settling and you have to use it, that you use some bleach or have something that you can also purify them before using. So people should start thinking about that, because you would say before there's a calm before the storm, while you don't have the excess rain and you have the heat, but when the rain starts falling, that's some of the backup you're going to get. Water going to shut off. So they say, well, it's dry now. As I said, you can't get the water. When the rain comes and it comes down really heavy, then the dams get shut off. Why? The same reason. We speak about the movement of the soil that may get down into the catchment area and may compromise their treatment plants, and so they will have to shut off distribution in some area, or the stability of the water would change because a lot of siltation, a lot of stuff,
the heavy debris and stuff that will come down.
So people have to prepare for that, because there's likely to be valve controls and all these things that is likely to happen.
My question also is directed to the authorities per se. We know that excessive dry season, we know the rain is going to come, we know there are areas that are prone to slides and stuff. Is it an issue where the authorities could probably beforehand look into these areas and kind of make some kind of beforehand, I want to figure out my direction when I'm going.
Yeah,
I'm just saying if I know there's a particular area that always, for some reason, when the rain falls, we gotta expect slides from there.
You're making good sense.
Maybe the authorities could look. I know that area always, for some reason, we're gonna get slides there. Maybe the authorities could probably look into that. Hey, let's probably get a tractor, do a little bit of excavation. I'm not saying to a magnitude, but
yes.
you could probably see now that there are loose soil somewhere or the other because of the dryness.
Yes, and you're making absolute good sense on that, because we seem to be seasonal in the sense that when the hurricane season is about to open in June, you may have seen, or in some cases, they would generate small projects to clear stream mouths and some of the sources and so on, and channel some of the tributaries in some areas and so that the water can flow. But it goes beyond that. As you say, some areas might be prone to flooding.
Yes.
So you look at what's causing it and how can we change that. You may need to widen the runoff areas, and you may need to look further upstream as to what happened, because agricultural practices and some aspect of land use has its impact on flooding as well.
Folks will be doing clearing of their lands and stuff, cutting trees and
they
stuff.
drop them in the river, and you see that a lot with people for the construction. They cut bamboos, they would drop aspect of the bamboo and so on, that would run off, and that would block river really, really quickly. So the other aspect of it, and I think there's a lot more control now in terms of dumping practices.
Yes.
People have been dumping old refrigerators and old stove in any area.
Yeah.
And what we see now, a lot of people who are selling things like coconut
water and stuff.
Yes, even if that is biodegradable, but some of the places that they dump them, sometimes they put them in plastic bags that cannot disintegrate easily, and that in itself creates some problems in some areas where they're dumping. So again, we need to be a bit more vigilant in terms of the people who are doing that, and the enforcement measures might need to kick in, and then the people who are doing that, they need to be more environmentally conscious as to what they can create to other people.
Because I'm noticing someone who's doing that a lot in the Granite Tang area, throwing the coconut. Someone is doing that on a weekly basis, and they are dumping. I'm always going up that area, and someone is every time I go there, someone is. It has gotten to that height now, because like every Saturday or so, maybe they come to St. George and sell their coconut, and they are just dumping the empty coconut like there. It's becoming unsightly.
It's unsightly. Yeah, that's one of it, and the other aspect is these coconuts. Remember,
they take a while before they disintegrate. You understand?
Yeah. So they can either cut them in half, or sometimes they just make one slash, take the water off, and leave them. And that is what I'm. So that will hold water. What the water would do, then you'll have lava forming there, and breeding mosquitoes and all that, and then you have, as again, diseases and other things transmitted to other people from these same mosquitoes that the dumpers of these coconuts that created those.
But do we still have inspections going around, sanitary inspections? Is that still?
The sanitary. I remember there was
back in the day as a youngster. I remember there used to be a lot. This individual would be passing around inspecting, and stuff. But I don't think I haven't seen that in a long time.
But it is something that I heard somebody clamored for an initiative like this to return, having these environmental inspectors. And I think that's the name they probably call them, because they came under the Ministries of Environment. But before it was just called health inspectors.
Yes.
They would go around. But that is one aspect that was very positive. I think it played its role. And the other aspect that I heard somebody mention is the maintenance of our roads.
Yes.
In terms of the potholes, one, and the bushing section, clearing those roadsides and so on, how consistent that should be. And I heard them mention about, we used to call them travel workers.
Yeah.
I had Ministry of Public Works. I heard in a meeting recently, the farmers meeting last week, and I heard somebody said that the Prime Minister looked, and the amount that they're paying for private owners to use the heavy duty equipment, it may make sense. Maybe having
getting their own equipment.
That's correct. And you may have continuous maintenance. I think it's something that needs to be given some type of consideration as to whether or not we need to have permanent maintenance teams for environmental reasons, for the same health reason, and whether or not for the aesthetics and the maintenance of our environment, the ambience, the creation of it, and the maintenance of our roads and critical facilities.
Sometimes you look at some of the roads that have the overhangs for a pretty long period of time, and you notice that portion of road always get destroyed because of that overhang. It takes longer to dry, just in case rain falls. It takes longer to dry, so because of the overhang.
Right.
You understand? And areas that are open, are not having the overhang of trees and stuff. You see, they have a tendency to remain at a better nature for a long period of time also.
And this is one of the reasons why there was a project, I think just a couple of years ago, where part of the rainforest, Grande Tang area, they started clearing some of the overhang because the road was deteriorating really quickly.
But that haven't been consistent. I think
that hasn't been consistent. But then that too has its positives, so you have to weigh them as to which one you want. And when you look at the rainforest, whether or not if you clear them, if you're defeating the aspect of being in a rainforest. So whether or not...
But I'm saying if it's over the road, I understand you need to clear it. I'm not saying down in where the forest is.
I agree.
Over the road. And I think that it needs to be consistent in terms of clearing. It's done, and sometimes it's not done for months. Again, it's not done, and then you always have that portion of road always being destroyed, and then you see the workers come and fix it, but then it doesn't last that long. Again, because the overhang and Grande Tang area, there's always that little rain that falls from time to time. It may not be falling in the major areas of it, but they always have that little rain from time to time, and you see that's happening.
And that's why it is a rainforest, and the trees and the vegetation is encouraged to be there to trap the rain and so forth. But all of these that we're speaking about, people may wonder what does that have to do with our risk initiative and risk management and so on and so forth. It does have a lot, because risk is not only about the physical individuals that travels from point A to Z, but it's how we plan forward. We need to be less reactive and be more proactive.
I agree.
Look at and think conversations like the one we're holding here should generate further discussions for action, so that we project into the future and prevent things that are likely to happen. I think we're going to see much more economic benefits by projecting and acting early enough.
So when we do for a break, let's take it. When we come back, I want us to get into a bit of in-depth conversation related to the heat, and especially for individuals. We may not be seeing it a lot, or maybe not seeing or hearing a lot about it in Grenada, but there are a lot of people who suffer injuries when it relates to heat. And when we come back, I want us to get a little bit in-depth in the conversation about it when we come back.
Because we started a little bit on it last week. I think this is about the third week we'll be mentioning, and it is relevant. Even people say that they're tired hearing some things about some of us talking about it. But I think every time we come on, there are some other people that we're helping. If
for some reason, someone what we speak about today may have effect on someone who may not have heard it before.
Of course.
Let's take a break.
Caring for it is what we're going to look at today.
Let's come right back after the break. So with us, folks, is to the point. And I see folks are calling, but we when we come back, our next period, we probably entertain the call. Stay with us, folks. We're coming right back.
More chances to multiply your Playway winnings by adding Multi-X to your regular Playway bets to win up to 5 times more. Imagine winning as much as $1,200 instead of $240 with a $10 Playway bet by simply adding Multi-X. Place your Playway bets from $1 to $10 or in increments on your favorite Playway symbols or numbers. Then add the Multi-X option at the same value to win 2 times, 3 times, 5 times more, or free plays. With Multi-X, you must bet the same amount wagered on your regular Playway bets for your winnings to be multiplied. Grenadians, value your dreams and win your way as much as 5 times more with Multi-X added to Playway, and watch your money grow. Must be 18 years or older to play. NLA, making your dreams come true.
Hello, OECS. Yo, OECS, this is your ocean. If I am to protect your future, we have to work together. It's the time to work together. If I am to help protect your future. Once I used to be so pure and clean, and those hills were so fresh and green. But now you see me as your dumping ground. Current situations has me choking on your pollution. Think hard about it. You will agree that really there is no you without me. Make the zero waste pledge, be responsible. Reduce your waste, recycle where possible. Recycle OECS. Green actions, blue oceans. Oh, blue oceans and our betterment.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. Good morning once again. It's to the point for today, Monday. I have with me Mr. Sylvan Intyre. And our conversation this morning, we want to talk about, the heat. How do you treat someone related to heat injuries? Yeah. It's something probably lots of us may in Grenada.
Yeah.
It's maybe not a regular thing, maybe because of our ethnic background and so forth. We may not hear folks suffering much from heat-related issues, but you hear it around the world. Folks are falling and stuff like that. They have to be taken to emergency rooms and stuff because of the heat. Tell us in terms of the related heat injuries. How do in the world suffer? Me being let's say speaking to me as someone who doesn't know about it.
Yeah.
Someone suffer from a heat-related injury.
Right. And we chose that to highlight this morning. On our program last week, somebody called in and they said they have not heard anything from Ministry of Health, and they're hearing Met Office talking about health response to heat wave, etc. But I think Ministry of Health, they're balancing it and they're in the best position to weigh what's happening based on the reports that they're getting, based on the other stakeholders who are doing their share of what it is in terms of informing people as to what they should do. But lay people like ourselves who have information and who have knowledge and skills as to how people can treat some of these things, that becomes very useful. And this is why it is important that at grassroots and community levels, people understand some bit of first aid and basic emergency response issues, how to deal with it. So the issue of heat-related emergency, it's something that it is not deep scientific, so that people don't understand or cannot handle heat emergencies. I think some things are happening that are heat-related, but sometimes people it is not really diagnosed as
all right. You're having a problem and it's related to heat, but for some reason you don't think it's that.
That's correct.
Because you've been managing it maybe for a number of years or whatever reason.
Yeah. So heat-related injuries can be broken down really into three main categories: things that happen as a result of excessive heat. You understand that the body's overall temperature is about 37 degrees centigrade and so forth, and then anything beyond that or sometimes thereabout can create that kind of a negative impact on the body. So we speaking here of heat exhaustion. Now, heat exhaustion speaks of when a person is dehydrated, that they may have used up a lot of energy, they sweat profusely, they may have had diarrhea conditions, they may have vomited quite a bit and so forth, and they can end up having some being exposed to heat to a large extent, can have heat exhaustion because they're just exhausted. And in this case, when you are a person has heat exhaustion, they become dehydrated, it means that they might have been sweating quite a bit.
All right.
And then you have heat cramps. Heat cramps, again, that is because the body has a decreased level in the amount of salt it should really have to balance the whole system itself. Once it falls below a particular level, then you'll have cramps associated. Now, all of what I'm saying, you'll realize that they hinge on fluid, liquid, and all of that, sufficient to keep the organs running. So people get cramps because if you sweat, and if you taste your own sweat or perspiration, as people would call it, you realize it tastes a little bit salty.
Yes.
So when you sweat profusely, the body loses that level of salt. When it loses too much, the body will have cramps. You may not necessarily be totally heat exhausted or dehydrated, but the body will start getting tense, pain around the joints and in some of your muscles and so forth. These kind of things would start coming. So these are some of the signs that can tell you that someone is getting down and they're having heat-related injury. And the other one, which is sometimes called a heat stroke, or sometimes what you call a shock. related. Now, when one gets a heat stroke or goes into a state of shock, the sweating then may be non-existent or very little.
Okay.
That is an extreme case. The person may be nauseated, they may vomit for that matter, they become dizzy, and the extent of that, the person will lose consciousness.
All right.
Very, very likely that when you have a heat stroke or you have person goes into a state of shock, they definitely are most likely will go into a state of consciousness. And that state of consciousness, we refer to it, that person goes into that state of shock. The end state of that is death.
Okay.
And so all of these heat-related injuries that I have mentioned, the process of dealing with that still has to do with rehydrating, getting a cooler environment or place, and the person exerting less energy than they may have been doing prior. Right. And so in a lot of cases, people get anxious, and as I said previously, that the lack of the knowledge of treating a certain situation would lead to anxiety, and so people diagnose or they take inappropriate action that could make a situation worse. So if you experience or notice someone under normal circumstance, they're just sweating profusely, they may be getting heat exhaustion.
Okay.
They are becoming dehydrated. You need to release the clothes from the neck all the way down, open up the waist where they may have belts and other things that might be restricting, tight socks and shoes and all these things to aid circulation, to have breeze and other things moving through the body much easier. So you get them into a cooler environment. To rehydrate must not be a one-off sudden process. It must be gradual.
You can't just give them some water and think that's it.
No, don't just give them a bucket of water. You just give them slow sips and so on and build on it. On the extreme case where a person goes into a heat stroke or what you call a state of shock, that's where you do not want to give them anything by mouth, because the organs start failing. If the organs are failing and you try to induce anything, giving them water or give them food or anything by mouth, and the system is not functioning, what you do, you make a bad situation worse.
Okay.
And you may induce death or worsening of the injury by trying to give them things by mouth. So in a case where you realize that person, their heart rate has increased, so the person's heart starts beating really fast, it means that the heart is overcompensating for the loss of body fluid. So the heart is really beating to get blood going around much quicker. Okay. And that is not happening. And this is why you have an increased heart rate. Now, the person may collapse, but the heart would still be beating really quickly. But if you check for the pulse, you realize that it is rapid, but very shallow. It's deep. Because now the heart is getting much weaker because it's not sustained because of the limited fluid. And in this case, the person is very likely to collapse. If the person has not collapsed, the person is still conscious, they may complain of being thirsty.
Yes.
You do not give them anything by mouth. The better thing to do is to try to activate the salivary glands or system in the mouth by just dipping your finger in water or so, or a wet rag, and keeping the lips moist. Just moisten that. If the person said that they just do not, as I said, give them anything, what happens there to get a person rehydrated, it is an intravenous intervention that is required, meaning that the person will be given an IV.
Okay.
Or that is, they call them the drips.
Yes. So that's where the medical folks
That's where the medical folks will step in. Mm-hmm. So there are persons who might be trained like paramedics or emergency advanced responders that may have the ability, trained, licensed, and or certified to administer IV. That's what is required. Not anyone trying to give them a cup of water, a bucket of water. Your action then is to cause them to be in a cooler environment, using up less energy, keeping them mild, having them lying down. In some cases, you can elevate the legs just slightly above the heart level so that there is not extra stress on the circulation. Because once you elevate the legs above the heart level, it becomes easier for the process of circulation to happen. Because if you realize, for people who understand, when the blood goes to the lower extremities of the body, it takes the contracting and the expanding of the muscles to get it to
come back to the heart.
But the upper torso, it's easier because of the whole gravity system and so on that can cause that circulation to be easier. So that's one of the reasons why when somebody collapses, they're advised to lie preferably on the back for a minute, and if they're going to be there for a while, you put them on the side in the recovery position, keeping the head tilted slightly back, ensuring that the air passage, the nose, the mouth, and so on, these are not restricted from anything at all, and that the area where they are not crowded by people. If it's an enclosed room or otherwise, open the windows or take them to the point where they can get fresh air.
Okay. That's interesting there. Because I ask these questions because, as I said, it's, I want to ask a question now. If I could go back to what I was thinking before. Signs of someone is going through, the risk of, of a heat injury. What are some of the signs?
So there are two things here that a responder or a medical practitioner requires to make a diagnosis. One, signs. The signs are the things you can see, you can touch sometimes, so you can smell them. But the symptoms is what the individual can convey. So you don't see the symptoms, but you see the signs, and the person will relate to you. They may say to you, I am feeling dizzy, I am feeling weak, or otherwise. Now, signs and symptoms. A person saying to you that I am feeling weak, I am feeling giddy, or otherwise, my body is feeling a bit tense. That's one of the symptoms that person could be having a heat-related injury. Now, I mentioned before that there might be injuries that are occurring, and people do not know that it is related because people may have other medical conditions underlying problems where the signs and the symptoms are similar. Persons may be diabetic, they may be hypertensive or otherwise, and some of the symptoms and the signs would be very similar. So one of the things in identifying whether or not it's heat related is trying to understand the condition that the person has been exposed to prior to some of these things happening. It is really good to do that. The other thing one needs to do is there's the old means of checking temperature, the back of the hand. So use the back of the hand, not inside of the hand. The back of the hand touch the forehead, the neck, the side of the neck, etc. Under the feet, and so these are some of the places that you really want to check to figure. The head is the most obvious because most of the time it is exposed, and someone loses most of the body heat through the head. So you back of the hand on forehead, and that will give you an indication as to the level of exposure. Then you also look at the person's breathing. Are they breathing rapidly, or are they breathing quite normal? Or the other one, you may want to check their pulse. All right. Side of the neck is really a good one, and just on the wrist, you can do that with the fingers, not with the thumb, because the thumb itself has its own pulse, and that will give you a false reading. So you want to use 2 fingers, side of the neck, either side, and having mentioned either side, persons tend to believe that the heart is on the left side of your body.
Is that not true?
No, that's not true. The heart is not on the left. The apex of the heart, which is that point, it tilts slightly to the left. But the heart sits between the lungs, and the lungs basically in the center of your chest. So if you understand the anatomy of the body and you can see it yourself, you expose it. The heart is not on somebody's left side because the whole system.
So why do people feel their left side and feel their heart is beating there?
Because, as I said, the apex is tilted slightly, so you get a stronger beat on the left side. So that's why people tend to believe that the heart is on the left, but it's not located on the left. So the right doesn't get anything because the heart is over. It sits right between the lungs, but the apex of it is tilted slightly. And this is why when one goes to the hospital somewhere and you do a blood pressure check, that 90 or more % of the time it is done on your left side for that same reason. And sometimes when people say put somebody lying, they say put them on the left side and so on. But it doesn't make a difference whether you put somebody lying on the left or the right side if you put them in the recovery position. So I think people need to understand those basic and simple tips. Some of them has to be biologically related, and so people get a little bit of knowledge on that. But yes, if you understand that does not have a really strong implication, but for a person needing to run a reading as to get the pulse rate and to get the temperature technically, yes, the left side is the one that the BP machine is placed on. You can get a reading. For those people who do readings with BPs, do a left and a right at the same time, and you realize you will get different readings.
Okay. But the correct one may always come from the left. From the left. It
is except something radically happens, the medical practitioners will understand that the readings vary left and right. So if for some reason the right has to be because there is an injury or something on the left, then they would understand that there would be an either upper reading or a lower reading based on what the side that is taken up.
A quick question I want to get in there. Maybe there are individuals who are listening to us this morning and may say, I am getting myself into this situation where there's no medical individual around, and I'm assuming someone has gotten a heat injury, heat-related injury.
Yes.
What are some of the basic things an individual could do? You did mention some a while ago as you were speaking, but the individual, they may not have that professional training, but they are the one that have to deal with the situation at the time.
Yes.
What are some basic things that an individual could do if they expect that someone has been in the sun for a pretty lengthy period of time, and they're getting for some reason whatever conditions that they are seeing on the individual now is coming because of the heat.
Yes.
What are some things that they could quickly do, or something basic they could do that can help that individual till some medical individual force comes around?
Yeah. Anyone, whether it's home, on the job, socializing someplace or otherwise, once you suspect somebody is coming in with some level of injury and so forth, the important thing to do is to advise somebody else, or the medical practitioners or the hospital. You give a call, let them know there is something happening. They may advise on some level of treatment. And if you have a situation where a person goes into heat exhaustion, or they may have a heat stroke or otherwise, a heat stroke requires immediate medical treatment, and person need to be taken there. A person may be having cramps or otherwise, and that may be a process that could lead further, and that may come on. So once you suspect someone may have been exposed to heat, they've been exercising, they've been running, if they are conscious, you need to ask them questions as to what they took, what they ate, what was their last activity prior to even coming out to doing what you saw them doing, what they drank before, what they ate before. These are some critical things that will help diagnose the situation really quickly. But if you're there, someone seems to be really hot, they might be sweating profusely, they might be breathing heavy, it is important to call first, and then you start creating a clean air and breathing environment for them, loosening them up, getting them in a cooler place, reducing the body temperature, but not too rapid. A fan is one of the easier things that one can use if it's an enclosed area, although fans circulate the air that's there. But if it's open, windows are open, you put a fan on, it will help to have the air circulating much quicker than a regular room size. If it's just in a house, if you can get them to the point where they can get fresh air. People need to be mindful as well that fresh air doesn't always mean outside.
Yeah.
Your area might be highly polluted. There might be things happening there might be somebody who might be using, for instance, there could be a mechanic spray shop or otherwise, body workshop. That can have some impact on the air quality as well. There might be some commercial entity mixing of paints and other liquids and so on, hardware and so forth, where that could have some implication on the quality of air with that person. So if you realize then that that air quality itself, based on your own breathing, your smelling, etc., you may want to get help and get the person away from that area so that the body temperature could be regulated properly, and you are in the process of getting them to medical attention.
Okay. We drew for a break. Let's take it so when we're coming right back. We also invite our listeners and viewers who may have a comment or two to make on, of course, our conversation this morning. We do that after the break. We're coming right back. Stay with us. It's To The Point.
GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies with our media partners in Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Trinidad, and beyond. Capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Credible, informative. Thank you for making us number one. News at 7, live, Monday to Friday on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11. K105.5 and 105.9, Hot 98.5 and 98.7, GBN Television Facebook page and YouTube channel, and www.gbn.gd. GBN, with you anywhere and everywhere.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. It's to the point for today, Monday, the 18th day of September. Let me say good morning to Innocent. It's Innocent's birthday today.
Oh, yeah?
Happy good morning to him. Yeah. And actually, tomorrow's mine, right?
Really? Big thing at the GBN.
Anyway, let me say good morning to the caller. Caller, good morning, and how are you?
Fine, thank you. I would say for no, because part of the problem is that as the day go on, the heat is intensified, and it does and is having an effect on me. But I want to more concern about, I'll come back to me in a second, but the health and safety of workers who have to be out in the sun. I wonder if we have thought of developing a protocol so that would be observed by people, by those who employ people who have to be outside. I know in some parts of the world they're already in the United States. They've done some of those things, and I'm not trying to compare with India, but I think there's some basic things we need to start working on so that we could safeguard the lives of workers who necessarily have to be outside for extended period. Now, another problem we have with the heat is the issue of the dust and also the substance that left out in the atmosphere. For instance, I have a serious problem I face on a daily basis where a neighbor sprays insecticides, almost like if it's perfume in the open. Like last night, yesterday evening, like if I sprayed in my own house because it was all over, all pervaded in my house. I'm asking, what can we do? Shouldn't we do something about limiting people's use of this thing, especially at a time when the atmosphere is so difficult? In addition to people lighting fire and burning indiscriminately, we need to do something because the heat is not going away. And finally, I raised that this morning. It is said after joy, sorrow, after up is down, and we have an extended period of heat now. We expect that the rain will come sometime in the future. So are we be preparing for that rain if it comes, say, like for a few days consistently and heavy and so on? We need to think about those things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you. And the latter part of the question, we did speak about that a wee bit, in terms of our preparedness for that. Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, gentlemen. And how are you all today?
We're doing pretty well. What about you?
I'm okay. Well, I'm in favor of this public works department business because I think we need that. I grew up in the early days, and I know that what the public work used to do. They're responsible for maintaining all government buildings and roads and these kind of stuff. But it's not their grant. For instance, the hospital. The public works supposed to have the blueprint of the hospital. So anything goes on there, they have men to send men to check it out. Even like the stadium, the Chinese build it, but their public works, after a while, the public works take over the maintenance of the stadium. Look at the stadium right now. Half or quarter of the stadium don't have galvanized in it. So you don't have galvanized, then what you think will become of the seats when the weather and all this stuff and lots of other things. So they need to bring back the Public Works Department and run it in a proper way. For instance, they don't want to change it right away, everything, because we have men with the heavy equipment, but you can start by getting a few pieces and then after a while. But what you need is to train people and to have people train like inspectors. You don't maybe need a lot of equipment, but have inspectors to inspect the job, make sure that it's done properly. Like even for, in the sense of the public works, to make money, the public works department could have a lathe inside there, because Grenada don't have no real big lathe system, a lathe to cut iron and make parts and do stuff. For instance, a lot of our vehicles here that's smoking. I know two other problems. One, injectors. The injectors need to be pressure test and change seals and things. The master pump need to come out, change bearings, change seal, and check the pressure. There's no one in Grenada for all these equipment in recalibrating master pumps, and that is where you're getting low pressure of the fuel to the injection, and if the injectors are bad, more worse, so you're getting a heavy fuel into the system, and it's not burning, so it's creating a lot of smoke. There's other things. The Public Works Department could have trained mechanics to rebuild engines where some of the heavy equipment people are already. You don't bring a machine, you take out the engine and you bring it to the Public Works. They have men to repair that engine. You come and you pick up your engine, you pay $12,000 or $20,000 for your repair of the engine, and you're gone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you, caller. Thank you, caller. Caller made me smile there in terms of the costing, though.
Yeah, just expensive $20, right?
I just say $20, but he said, 20,000 and 12,000. I mean, the caller did make some interesting points. We did speak about that also this morning in terms of the ongoing in terms of individual doing inspections, especially roads and overhangs.
That's correct.
And the previous caller mentioned, the consistency in terms of having individual doing inspections.
Yes,
that is so needed. Let's entertain another caller. Yes. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Hi, good morning, GT.
Good morning.
First of all, I think you need to limit the length of the callers. The first two callers were very long, and they need to know when to stop, and you need to know when to stop them. Everyone is an expert these days. Anyway, regarding your guest, I think he has imparted a lot of valuable rescue information, but he needs to be very careful that he's not crossing the line into giving medical advice. Some of the things he said are erroneous and misleading, and medical advice should be left to the doctor. I think he gets too technical, too detailed, and in doing that, it could be negligent in some of the information that he's given. So he needs to recognize that he's not a medical doctor and do not cross boundaries when giving advice on rescues and other information. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, caller.
Yeah, so let me just respond to the last caller, and thank you for that. I do appreciate criticism, and I just want to reassure that I have not and will not go. I'm very mindful out of my knowledge, my qualification. The information that I give could be verified, it could be tested in any way. One can check it out, and that's as much as we will say on
That's
that.
what you say for now.
Yeah.
All right. Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, sir. Go right ahead, please.
Yes, sir. And many could criticize, but few can do better. You criticize them, criticizing us regarding. But tell them to do better, cannot do better. Anyhow, I've looked into Mr. Sylvan's addresses, and I look at him as a learned man. And not a learned more than him, more than him. But my experience permits me. So, usually being seen is food for thought. And food not even for thought, but to eat. Follow and die. Now, I am a... No. Where was Mr. Sylvan originally?
Caller, I may have to tapping on you here a wee bit. Caller, for 1 second. There seems to be a problem with your phone for some reason or the other. You are constantly being going and coming. Try to rectify that and get back to us, please. 435-2041, 435-2041. That's the number. You seem to be going and coming from time to time, and then we're losing you for a couple of minutes, and then you come back, and it's not really listenable. Let's go back to the phone line. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
You know what I really feel pleased about with the educator there. I don't know if it's Mr. McIntyre. He talked about the heart. You know, I had thinking that the heart was on the list all along, and many people the same thing. And that piece of educated part is very handy, Mr. Thank you for it, because a lot of people think the heart was on the list.
Thank you, caller. Thank you. I mean, you corrected it. You're not saying that it's totally not on the left.
Yeah.
You understand, but as you mentioned how it's tilted, that's where you feel it more on the left.
And that knowledge and that information, you look to biology or you research these things and you can find them. So one of the things we'd appreciate that if people, we're not perfect, we're not most knowledgeable, but if there are anything that people figure that, they can always call us back, chime in and say this was erroneous. They can even bring it on us so that we can quickly correct it, because what we don't want to do is to mislead anyone.
So true.
Absolutely.
We have approximately 7 minutes left on today's program. We lost that caller there, 435-2041, 435-2041. And a bit of a conversation we want to have, Sylvan, is we want to talk about, actually, so if time permits, we're talking about food security, the risk, threats to food security condition and circumstances, and it's all related to heat.
Yeah.
And we could probably going to tip on that a little bit. Maybe we could probably forward it for next week. Folks should probably look forward for our conversation on that next week if we can.
Right. So in the whole spectrum of risk reduction and managing your risk, food security is one of those that is critical, and we think we would want to get people's feedback on that, people's idea as to how food security can be guaranteed technically.
Yeah.
So that's what part of the conversation we would chime in on that a little bit as to some of the risks that we see and how we can mitigate it. We're hoping to get an expert in that field as well that can accompany us, that would bring in some more body to the conversation.
All right, we put that in for next Monday.
Yes.
So folks can look forward to that. Caller, good morning, welcome. Good morning to you, caller. Good morning to you. Go right ahead, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. McIntyre should be hard to go wrong and in the community. And I wanted to say teach. No, you say
caller, your radio or whatever device in the background, it's too loud.
I don't have no device. Your device.
This caller always seems to want to get into an argument with me for some reason or the other every morning. If you're having a problem with me, I don't want to say it, but I may have to say it. This caller always seems to have an issue with me. You sitting here, Mr. McIntyre, and you're hearing his devices make, and he doesn't have. You understand? And every morning it's a problem with the same caller. I don't know why.
There's another caller.
There's another caller coming. Let's go back to the phone line. Caller, good morning. Welcome. Good morning to you, caller. Yes, there's no one. There's no one there. Mr. McIntyre, as you mentioned, next week we're going to look forward to that particular conversation we want to have.
Yes.
You understand? I got distracted. Forgive me for that. I got distracted.
Food and food security in terms of the context of disaster risk reduction.
Yes.
And some of the things prior, before, during and after, we can look at where food security in crisis is concerned. How we can buffer, we can cushion that, and some of the actions or the lack of that, how it impacts on our food security. All right.
We do have a caller, probably our final caller for the morning. Good morning to you, caller. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. And good morning to you, Mr. McIntyre. Really admire you, knowing what you had to deal with, the loss. And every week you take time off to educate us on this program. Heads out to you. I'm lying to tell you, God bless you. And I just want to say this, the heat is very difficult for some people. Imagine some people accustomed getting the 8 hours sleep, and now it cut by half. And when you get up in the morning, sometimes you have to leave your bed outside. You have to be fanning. When you get up in morning time, you're so tired, and you have to go and make that day work again. So I wish if bosses could experience the way that some workers are experiencing, perhaps they may be able to cope with that worker better, because sometimes when you reach and work, you're so tired, the body is restless. How much you could get from that worker? So I don't know what we could do to help people that go into this situation, because for me, it's real hard. When I get up in morning time, it will be so tired because our custom getting my 8 hours and now we cut. So it's real on my brain. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much also. And as a caller said, I'm experiencing that. So I guess because of the heat lately, I'm getting less sleep for some reason.
Definitely.
And I'm sure it's affecting a lot of other individuals out there. Less sleep because of the heat.
So again, that is, everything connects and relates to each other. And so you have to be able to manage even your rest and your sleep pattern. Know that if you're having difficulty in getting it during the normal sleep time, which is during the course of the night, you will find that you'll have to set aside some time sometime during the course of the day or otherwise to ensure that the body gets adequate rest.
All right. Let's entertain our final caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Thank you for accepting. Concerning the heater, sometimes I think Grenada is a joke. We had the wild pine straw hats as a big thing, but maybe we probably became too proud to wear the straw hats. But the Chinese who work outside still wear their hats. Okay, it was a thriving business in Marquis and Soubise. Grenada spent money to bring 2 Cubans to teach people how to bring it up to bring the straw craft up to modern standards. And yesterday, when I saw the people, how many people walking on the road bareheaded in the hot sun, I just had to shake my head and say, Grenada is a real waste of time. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you, caller, for being that frank.
Wow, yes. So it is absolutely on point based on what we said in terms of head protection.
Yes.
As I did indicate, you lose a lot of body heat, most of it to your head, and if your head is protected, yes. And the idea of a covering on the head where it is not just totally restricted, where air cannot breathe through. Some hats that are designed, you realize the air can go through, if not going through all the way, but there are some eyelids on some little holes on the sides, on either side, so it could release some heat and some air can also come through.
All right.
So that in itself aids the heat process or the lack of other things towards heat injuries that people can have.
All right. Sylvan, it's about time for us to take a wrap this morning. Thanks for being here as always. Any closing comments before we take a wrap?
Yes, so be mindful that we are still experiencing above normal heat, and people need to again be reminded that you need to rehydrate yourself. And if you're not rehydrating, but just if the word rehydrate seems heavy, just drink water. Ensure that the clothing that you wear is at a particular type where it can come through, it's open up free enough, and so forth. And if someone seems to be behaving in a particular way that is unusual, you seek medical help immediately, ensure that you call. But while you do so, it is important to ensure that you create a free breathing environment and less heat associated to where the person is at the moment.
All right. Thank you once again. Hey, folks, I want to thank all our listeners and viewers. So those who, of course, listened and viewed this morning, those who called in and made various comments, thank you so much. Join us again for another edition of To The Point. Most likely that'll be tomorrow once your mind permits. Have yourself a great day and goodbye.